We begin in Myanmar, where a human rights group says security forces shot and killed at least 38 people in violent crackdowns on Sunday. The military declared martial law for some areas in the Yangon region after several factories were burned down. In the latest sign, the army itself is preparing to deal with demonstrators. Administrative and judicial authority has been transferred to the local commander. People continue to take to the streets protesting against the military's repression, holding signs with slogans rejecting the coup.
The State Administration Council has instructed the Yangon military headquarters to enact martial law relevant to administration and jurisdiction in accordance with constitutional law.
The imposition of martial law comes after Chinese-funded factories in Yangon were set ablaze in Sunday's protests. The army and demonstrators blamed each other for setting the plants on fire. Martial law now covers 6 townships in the region. The Chinese embassy in Myanmar said on its Facebook page that Chinese citizens were injured in the unrest and called for action to stop the violence. A political analyst says martial law will give the military an excuse to use force on protesters before Armed Forces Day at the end of this month.
The army won't back down. It will be a severe loss of faith if they had to, even stop the parade on 27th March because of these protesters in Yangon, and they're not going to take it.
A group of ousted lawmakers issued a statement on Sunday. They have declared the junta a terrorist organization and said in a statement, people have the full right to defend themselves or others. Meanwhile, the lawyer for Aung San Suu Kyi says her video court hearing set for Monday was postponed because the internet was down. The UN Secretary General's special envoy on Myanmar has condemned the continued violence of the country's security forces. Christine Schraner Bergner issued a statement on Sunday saying the military is defying calls for restraint, dialogue, and full respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. The U.S. Secretaries of State and Defense have started their Asian tour, their first trip out of the country. Before leaving for Japan and South Korea, they stressed the need to strengthen ties among U.S. allies to counter China's growing threats. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin criticized China by name in an opinion piece published in the Washington Post on Sunday. They said some countries seek to challenge the international order and that China in particular is all too willing to use coercion to get its way. They stressed that working with allies is critical. The secretaries said they'll hold China accountable for human rights abuses in Xinjiang and Tibet and eroding autonomy in Hong Kong. They also pointed to issues over Taiwan and the South China Sea. Austin and Blinken arrived separately in Japan on Monday. They'll hold 2+2 talks with their Japanese counterparts on Tuesday. After visiting South Korea, Blinken is to meet with top Chinese diplomats in Alaska on Thursday. The U.S. side says it'll raise human rights and other concerns in the talks. Relatives of Japanese people abducted by North Korea are asking the U.S. Secretary of State to help bring their family members home as early as possible. Yokota Sakie and her son Takuya visited the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo to meet with Charge d'Affaires Joseph Young. They delivered a letter addressed to Secretary of State Blinken, urging the U.S. government to refrain from easing sanctions on North Korea until all abductees return to Japan.
We told him we only hope that our loved ones will be able to set foot on Japanese soil again. We told him we are counting on help from America.
Her daughter Megumi was kidnapped in 1977 when she was 13 years old. Japan's government says North Korean agents abducted at least 17 citizens in the 1970s and 80s. Five were repatriated after a Japan-North Korea summit in 2002. but the 12 others, including Yokota Megumi, remain unaccounted for. Now to the latest on the coronavirus here in Japan. The number of newly confirmed cases in Tokyo continues to rise as people wait to see whether a state of emergency will be lifted in less than a week. Officials confirmed 175 new cases in the capital on Monday. That's 59 more than a week ago. The 7-day average hovered over 280, about 14% more than the week before. The increase comes as a state of emergency for Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures is due to end on Sunday. The declaration took effect in January and has already been extended twice.
The pace of decline in new cases has leveled off recently. We will listen to experts' views before making a final decision. I cannot tell under current conditions whether we should extend the declaration or not.
Experts are concerned about the spreading coronavirus variants. 17 infections in Chiba Prefecture are related to one karaoke bar, a popular spot for retired people to sing during daytime hours.
Many people weren't wearing a mask while singing. That's extremely risky. You should try to avoid singing out loud. Maybe you should choose soft songs.
Japan started rolling out vaccinations last month. The minister in charge says he'll ask businesses to let employees take time off to get their shots or if they develop adverse reactions after inoculations. Health officials across Japan reported about 700 new cases on Monday. More than half of them were in the Tokyo area. A 12-year-old Japanese girl is set to become the youngest second dan professional player of the strategy game Go. Nakamura Sumire became the youngest professional Go player in April 2019 when she was 10 years old. The game, which is very popular in Asian countries, is extremely complex and tactical like chess. On Monday, Nakamura, currently a first dan player, defeated a 48-year-old sixth dan opponent, achieving her first ever 10 straight win in official matches. The victory clears the 30-win requirement to advance to the second dan.
I'm happy to achieve my goal of becoming a second dan player in elementary school.
Nakamura will break by 3 months the record for youngest second dan player set 53 years ago. Japanese researchers have found that the more alcohol premenopausal women drink, the more likely they are to develop breast cancer. A research group at Aichi Cancer Center collected data from more than 158,000 Japanese women over a period of around 14 years. About 2,200 of the women developed breast cancer. The researchers found that premenopausal women who drink alcohol almost every day have 1.37 times higher risk than those who don't drink. They also found that women in this category who drink more than 23 grams of alcohol a day are at 1.74 times greater risk than those who don't imbibe. Japan's health ministry sets the daily average amount of alcohol for moderate and appropriate drinking at around 20 grams. This is equivalent to a 500 milliliter can of beer or other beverage with an alcohol content of 5%.
The best possible course of action is to reduce alcohol intake by drinking less or less frequently or both. Women who drink alcohol should realize that they are at risk. They should be sure to undergo breast cancer screening.
The researchers say they found no link between the amount of alcohol drunk or the frequency of drinking and the incidence of breast cancer in women who have undergone menopause. Paraguay's first satellite has been released from the International Space Station. It was developed by the country's space agency and a Japanese university. Engineers from Paraguay spent 2 years developing the satellite, at the Kyushu Institute of Technology in western Japan with support from their government. The mini satellite measures 10 centimeters on each side and weighs a little over 1 kilogram. The satellite and two others developed by engineers from Japan and the Philippines were taken to the ISS last month. They were released from Japan's Kibo laboratory module on Sunday Japan time and entered orbit around the Earth. They are to collect data on the habitats of disease-causing insects in Central and South America. The Kyushu Institute of Technology has researchers and students from Nepal, Sri Lanka, and other developing countries. It sent 18 satellites into space. While late-season heavy snow has pummeled parts of the United States, other areas of the country have experienced multiple tornadoes. Our meteorologist Sayaka Mori has the details.
Rough weather has been hitting the United States. During the weekend, there were nearly 20 reports of tornadoes in the plains, and we saw one of the heaviest snowstorms on record for parts of the Rockies. Take a look at this video coming out of Colorado. Denver saw 69 centimeters of snow, making it the fourth heaviest on record for the city. The winter storm conditions forced Denver International Airport to close all of its runways. More than 57,000 customers were without power in Colorado, and a number of roadways were shut down. In fact, parts of the state saw over 90 centimeters of snow. It was even worse in the north as well. Nearly 1.3 meters of snow fell. Now, more snow is possible for the U.S. Midwest, and because of a combination of warm air surging in from the south, there's a possibility of severe thunderstorms across the southeastern United States, possibly into Wednesday, and it's going to be snowy and windy across the western United States again. Meanwhile, heavy rain pounded many places of Hawaii last week. In fact, Mount Waialeale saw more than 950 millimeters of rain in 6 days. Floods and landslides took place, and that forced many people to evacuate. Unstable weather conditions will likely continue, so there's a possibility of more showers in many places of Hawaii during this week. Honolulu could see a chance for rain every day into the rest of the work week. Beijing experienced the worst sandstorm in 10 years on Monday. Conditions will likely improve, but instead other areas, such as the Korean Peninsula and also Japan, will see yellow sand coming in from the west. This is the forecast. It will likely cover the Korean Peninsula on Tuesday morning and then eventually affect the Sea of Japan side of Japan as we go into Tuesday evening. That's it for me. Stay safe.
Protests continue in Myanmar as the military declares martial law in 6 areas of Yangon, continuing a forceful campaign against demonstrators. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin arrives in Japan, where he joins Secretary of State Anthony Blinken for the first stop in a diplomatic trip to Asia. In Australia, thousands of protesters demand an end to abuse of women after 2 rape accusations are made against government officials. And India reports its highest one-day number of COVID-19 cases this year.
France, Italy, Germany and Spain have joined the list of countries which have suspended the use of the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine. The World Health Organization and the European regulator, the EMA, have advised countries to continue using the jab for now. All non-essential businesses, shops and schools have been closed in much of Italy in a bid to contain another spread of the virus. More than half of the country is affected, including the regions around Rome and Milan. At least 50 protesters are now thought to have been killed in Myanmar during demonstrations against the military coup on Sunday. There have been more deaths on Monday, and martial law has been extended throughout Yangon. And the Netflix-produced movie Mank led the way at the Oscar nominations, being put forward in 10 categories.